Welcome to last. Have you ever been given a name by someone? A name that is not who you are. Shorty, small fry, little bit, dumb, stupid, ignoramus. We all have been given names, and who we are is not defined by these names. We're defined by what God says about us. There are 3 men in the Bible who are given false names. Their story ends proving that they were what God said about them and not man. Hananiah, which means Yahweh is gracious. Mishael, which means loan or borrow. Azariah, which means God will help you. These 3 men were taken captive by Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, given Babylonian names. Shadrach, which means man of the moon god. Meshach, which means who is like the moon god. And Abednego, which means servant of Nego. All of these names said these men should stop worshiping the one true God and started serving false gods. But the end result of their story became true. What God said about them be true. Tonight, I'm going to tell you 10 things, 10 biblical truths that you'll find in their story. Let us begin. The first thing we can find about these 3 men is their position brought jealousy. Their position brings jealousy. Wherefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans, as Daniel chapter 3, verses 8 through 12 says, wherefore at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said, King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, has made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whosoever doesn't fall down and worship the golden image shall be cast in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. But there are some Jews whom thou hast set of the affairs of the prophets of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. There are people that will be jealous over the position God has given you. Whenever God brings favor in your life, sometimes there's people that are going to be jealous of that favor. And that was certainly true in the case of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These Chaldeans came and said, these Jews that you set in position, they don't worship your God. You put in a high position, but they choose not to bow down to your image. We are in lower positions than they, and we bow down, O king. They were jealous. Sometimes when we're put in great positions, we find ourselves having others being jealous of us. The second thing that I want you to understand is the enemy, he doesn't give up. We find that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as we like to call them, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they came to themselves with the same chance. You know, the devil will come at you and he will say, hey, you sin for me, and it's great. And you might tell him no, you might be rude and say, no, the Bible says that I cannot do that. But then the devil says, here, let me give you a chance. It's not just the first time that the devil comes and tempts you. You usually fall when we have second and third chances to do a sin when the devil comes and tempts at us. The enemy does not give up. It was the case with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He had a second chance to worship. The king says, maybe they didn't hear the first time. Maybe when I gave the decree, they didn't understand. So I'm going to call them up here, and I'm going to give them a second chance. We're going to give them a second chance. And it says, verses 13 and 15, then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded, it says in his rage and in his fury, he commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they brought these men before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar spake to them, is it true, O Shadrach and Abednego, do not serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that when time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, if ye worship not, ye shall be cast in the same hour midst of the fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hand? That he thought he was very great. He said, you know what? You don't understand who you're dealing with. You don't understand you're dealing with the king here. And let me just put it on the line and tell you, if you do not worship, I'm going to throw you in the furnace. If you do not worship, I'm going to throw you in the furnace. Let's give you a second chance. Let's up the stakes a little bit. Let me make it very clear that I mean what I'm going to say. That I mean what I'm going to do. That I didn't just say it. They aren't just words. I really am going to back up and throw you in the fiery furnace. The enemy does not give up. The enemy is going to try to get you at every corner that he possibly can. Any way that he can get you to fall into some he's gonna attack. Anything possible. The enemy does not give up. The third thing, we can take a stand for God. Even if God doesn't save you. Take a stand for God. Even if God is in you. You know, it's easy to talk, say, God's going to be there for me. God's going to help me. But when the time comes, and you're standing face to face with a trial, and God's looking at you, everyone's looking at you, and God's put you through this test, and you're sitting there, and you can talk like, I want to stand up. I'm going to take a stand. God's going to help me. But what about those times when God doesn't help you? Because we all know that those do come. Take a stand, even if God does not choose to. Find that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego do this. If it be so, they say, 17, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fires, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. But if not, we're still going to do what's right. But if not, we're still going to do what God wants us to do. Sometimes we might find ourselves in that test where we have to say, if everyone else is not going to follow, I am. And God's going to bless me, but if he doesn't, I'm still going to do what he tells me to do. But if not, and we find that Michelle's name comes into play here. His name means loaned, borrowed. And certainly standing up and saying, but if not, we're going to not bow to you. God's going to save us, but if not, I'm still not going to bow down. If God doesn't save me, we're still not going to bow down. My name means loan. God has given me my life. My life is borrowed from God. It is his life to do whatever he wants to do with it. And I'm going to do what he wants me to do. And he's going to save me, but if he doesn't, I'm still going to do what he has for me to do. We have to stop living in fear. We don't need to worry about what others say about us. We don't need to worry about what people think of us. These names that people give us, they're not true. They're not true about us, these names we're given. God has said so much more about us. God has said many things about us. We don't need to worry about what others say. We don't need to worry about the trials when they come. We need to trust in God. We need to serve him. We need to do what we know we can do for him. And when it comes to that trial, he's going to help us. But if not, we're still doing what he has to do. Number 4, taking a stand angers the enemy even more. Taking a stand angers the enemy even more. Verse 19, then was Nebuchadnezzar flurried, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded they should heat the fiery furnace 17 times more than it was wont to be heated. Have you ever had someone that's visage has changed against you? I'm hearing, and that happens quite often. There's times when you tell your children not to do something, and there's a time to tell your children not to do something, and you give them that look. You know what I'm talking about? Where they better not do it again. When you say stop, and you give them that look, then they know that dad or mom means business. That there's sometimes that there's that voice, and there's that visage, that face or facial expression of a person. And it says that his countenance, his visage changed. See, he already enraged that just by hearing that they had not bowed. And now they've given them a second chance. And then they had just boldly said, whether you give us a second chance or not, we're still not going to bow. We're still not going to argue. His face just totally changed. And he was just full of anger and rage. Sometimes what we stand is making him mad. But we still going to take that stand. We're still going to stand up for Christ. And the Bible says here, it says that they commanded that the fiery furnace would be heated 17 times than what it would want to be heated. And that word 7 times, this term means that the furnace would be as hot as it heated. 7 being a perfect number in the Bible means that this fire would have been as hot as it possibly could be. 7 times, you see my words, 7 times more than it wanted to be heated. That's a hot fire. And the king was so angry, so upset, that he said, we're going to heat it as hot as we